Part 41. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 401. Chapter 401, Causing the Heavenly Disaster. Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. Today, Rongxiu finally stopped holding her. She looked at the spirit beast bag in her hand, but it was the 4 spirit beasts. No wonder she couldn't find them in the Juya forest. This person, Yuan glanced at Rongxiu in the group of puppets. She didn't know what to say. She doesn't mind multiple friends if nothing like that happens. But what he did to Mujukan was something she couldn't accept. She was not generous enough to be friends with a man who hurt her man. She didn't kill him because her current cultivation level was not enough. If he stopped being a monster in the future, she wouldn't pursue it. She won't be polite if she tries to make trouble again. Her 2 sons can't live without their father, and she can't live without Mujukan. Yuan held Mujukan's hand and only glanced at Rongxiu in the group of puppets. However, the monk who transformed into gods was the monk who transformed into gods. Wherever his sword energy crossed, the puppet's arms and legs were severed and it lost its fighting ability. But pour one piece and add another piece later. Let's go down, Mujukan's voice was without any emotion. The 2 of them flew into the group of puppets. In Chaoyang City, Rong Nantian was anxious. He strangled it with both hands and shouted several times in the direction of the Rong clan to get out. Sure enough, more than 100 people rushed out of the formation. Lu Fufen naturally did not lag behind him. With a wave of his hand, all the disciples who had not wanted to evacuate flew out of the formation and rushed into the group of puppets. The man in cloak in the distance was very happy when he saw so many high-level monks coming out. He took out a flute, put it to his mouth, and blew out a string of strange notes. When the puppets heard the sound, they attacked the monks like chicken blood. Yuan looked around at the puppets that only knew how to slash and kill, and were extremely powerful. She threw out the blood-devouring demonic insects. When the blood-devouring demonic insects saw the puppets, they seemed to be seeing a delicious meal. Without Yuan's instructions, they automatically divided the puppets into several groups. Pack. At this time, the originally ferocious puppet began to stir like crazy, and its power was extremely ferocious. Yuan was horrified. She released her consciousness and heard a series of strange sounds. She took another look at the extremely violent puppet. There's something else she doesn't understand. Yuan immediately took off and flew above the puppet group. She glanced at the other monks. The other monks all flew out of the puppet group. The puppets lost their attack targets and went to attack the formation. The scene became tense for a moment. Waner, Mujukan flew out. How are you? Are you injured? Yuan scanned his body with her consciousness and asked worriedly. While slashing the puppets that jumped up, Mujukan said, No, Waner, we don't have time. How about throwing the spiritual pet out and causing a catastrophe? These puppets will be able to withstand the thunder again. Yuan hesitated for a moment. If it causes a thunderstorm, I guess the city defense formation may not be able to be saved. It doesn't matter, just let the monsters go at this time. Rongxiu also flew over and said calmly. Yuan glanced at him and said, Okay, let everyone on your side go away. Rongxiu nodded and flew away without saying a word. Yuan and Mujukan collected the blood-devouring demonic insects and retreated, further away from the city, and immediately threw out the 4 5th-level spiritual pets. She just said sorry to the 4 spiritual pets in her heart. They would definitely die if the disaster was caused this time, because the thunder disaster would think that the puppets below were helping them carry the thunder. There were too many puppets, and there were 4 5th-level monsters at the same time, so this time the calamity thunder would only cause more damage. Sure enough, as soon as the 5 5th-level spiritual pets came out, the dark clouds in the sky immediately gathered and pressed down, and the thunder in the sky rumbled. The 4 spiritual pets also felt the terrifying power of heaven, and they were trembling with fear before the thunderstorm came. They want to escape, but with the power of Yuan's contract, they can't escape. Can only wait for their fate above the puppet swarm. I don't know if the puppets are still conscious. They attack the formation more fiercely, as if they want to escape inside to avoid lightning. The puppets on the periphery scrambled to escape, seemingly more afraid of thunder than the four spiritual pets. The man in cloak in the distance wanted to destroy Chaoyang City in one go, but at the critical moment, several monsters suddenly appeared to overcome the calamity. His puppet is invulnerable to water and fire, and his spells are indestructible. He is only afraid of thunder. Of course, thunder spells are also the puppet's nemesis. It's just that there may not be even one monk among the tens of millions of people in Lilingen. The army of puppets, which has always been invincible, has never suffered any losses. Today, his plan will fall short. The cloaked man stared at Yuan with resentment. It was the female cultivator with the blood-eating demonic insect again. This female cultivator is his nemesis. A nascent soul stage female cultivator can contract several fifth-level monsters at the same time without suffering backlash. Does this female cultivator have the ability to control beasts? The man in the cloak put down the bone flute in his hand and took a look at the thunder rolling in the sky. He is also afraid that all evil things will not be able to escape from the thunder. His heart skipped a beat and he played the bone flute again. When the flute sounded, the group of violent puppets suddenly stopped attacking and retreated towards the outside of the city. Rong Xiu's consciousness has been following the sound of the flute to find the person who controls the puppet. He doesn't know what kind of secret technique he used, so it is difficult to locate him. Yuan saw the puppet group trying to escape, so she ordered the four monsters to spread out and never leave the puppet group. The calamity thunder in the sky has not landed yet, because it is not brewing. There are so many people helping to carry the thunder. How can a small thunder hit everyone within the range of the thunder calamity? How to show off his divine power? People inside the city could clearly see the emergency situation outside the city. When the four monster beasts were trying to survive the disaster on top of the puppet group, all the monks were shocked. It turned out that the puppet group could still be dealt with in this way. When the crisis is over, they will also go to the Juya forest to catch monsters. They will use this trick when encountering puppets in the future. Rong Nantian, on the other hand, kept looking at Yuan with squinted eyes. This scene was so familiar. Looking at his son again, this son is simply a genius in cultivation. He was promoted to God transformation at over 300 years old. He is the youngest God transformation monk in the history of Qinjiao continent. It is also the pride of his family, and even more of his pride. My son is good in all aspects, except that he doesn't like women. I have never seen her treat any woman with pretentious words. She is cold to everyone, including his father. But my son has been constantly changing over the past year or so, and everything I see him doing today is related to that Yuanying female cultivator. Rong Nantian's eyes were a bit colder. The female cultivator was obviously married and had a son. No matter how beautiful and fragrant she was not worthy of his son. His eyes moved to Mujukan. This man was not bad in appearance and qualifications. If the female cultivator did not follow the rules of a woman, then don't blame him. At this moment, the disaster that everyone had been waiting for a long time finally fell. CE. 4 tribulation thunders like the world-destroying divine thunder descended, striking the 4 spiritual pets and the puppets. The sound of thunder and lightning and the screams of puppets could be heard for 100 miles in an instant. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 402. Chapter 402 Chaoyang Sect. The 4 spiritual pets are worthy of being demon foxes. At the moment when the lightning disaster fell, the 4 demon foxes burrowed under the puppets. They were not killed at once, but their bodies were still bruised. The puppet group is not so lucky. It is useless for them to escape. As long as they are locked by the thunder, they will be struck by it even if they escape to the ends of the earth. So many puppets were struck by lightning, and their bodies were so hard that when the power of thunder and lightning wandered over their bodies a few times, their bodies fell apart and turned into a pile of ashes in the blink of an eye. Okay, kill them, the monks in Chaoyang City shouted excitedly when they saw this shocking scene. Kill them to death. How come we didn't know how to use this method before? Yes, otherwise how could my senior brother be killed by that ghost puppet? Sounds of exclamation and annoyance resounded among the monks. Even Lu Fuifeng was shocked. Everyone only knew that dirty and evil things were afraid of thunder, and thunder was their nemesis. They only knew the monks who were searching for Liligan, and they had never thought of using this trick at all. It seems that sometimes people's thinking is really imprisoned by rules and regulations, like a frog at the bottom of a well. Lu Fuifeng looked at Yuan and Mujukan with a glint in his eyes. These two people are Yuanying monks at such a young age. It is unforgivable that such geniuses should not be included in the Chaoyang sect. The catastrophe outside is still brewing, and the locked puppet is useless. The man in the cloak can only leave bitterly. If he doesn't leave, the god transformation monks will catch him, and all his plans will be aborted. So what if these puppets are destroyed? The most indispensable thing in the world of immortality is people. Snort. Catching monsters to ruin his business, doesn't he know how to capture all the monsters for his own use? When the second thunder tribulation came down, 100 miles in front of the Chaoyang city gate was blasted into a mess, and all the puppets and 4 spiritual pets were reduced to ashes under the thunder tribulation. Yuan looked at the scorched blackness sadly. Although she knew this was the result from the beginning, she still felt very uncomfortable. After all, she had raised them for so long. Let's go. Mujukan took Yuan's hand and left. There was nothing to do without them here, not to mention there was a disgusting person. Yuan nodded. 2 little friends, stay, a voice like a clear spring sounded behind them. The 2 of them turned back. A handsome middle-aged man in purple stands in mid-air. His gentle demeanor and clear spring-like voice make people fall in love with him at a glance. No matter how favorable he is to others, he dare not ignore the strong aura on his body. This is a monk who transforms himself into a god. I've met the seniors, Yuan, and the 2 of them bowed as juniors. Haha, you 2 are our great benefactors in Chaoyang City. Why did you leave without saying a word? This is not to make the sect master rude. I also invite these 2 little friends to sit in the Chaoyang sect and wait for the sect master to fulfill his duties as a landlord. Yi, Lu Fuifeng said with a smile. Although he sounded gentle, he had an aura that was irresistible. The 2 of them looked at each other. They were afraid that they would not go on this trip, so Mujukan said, then, juniors, it is better to be respectful and obey my orders. Haha, this sect leader especially likes young people like you who are capable and polite. Please, 2 friends. Mujukan, senior, please. At this time, Chaoyang City's city defense formation had stopped, and the 2 of them followed Lu Fuifeng and flew towards Chaoyang sect. When they flew past Rong Xiu and his son, Rong Nantian looked deeply at the backs of the 3 people as they left. Xiu likes that woman. Rong Xiu replied calmly, yeah. Rong Nantian patted his son on the shoulder, if Xiu likes it, grab it. Back then, your mother and I weren't. Nantian knew that these words touched Rong Xiu's pain point, so he quickly shut up. At that time, he also fell in love with Rong Xiu's mother, who was also a married woman, but he thought she was extremely beautiful and an extremely gentle woman. Rong Nantian kidnapped the man without saying a word, and they got married that night. The woman became depressed from then on, and soon after giving birth to Rong Xiu, her beauty disappeared. This is also the reason why Rong Xiu doesn't get close to him. Rong Xiu glared at him, turned around and left. Rong Nantian touched his nose, smiled bitterly at his son's back, sighed and returned to the wrong family. It's unrealistic to that woman away. In today's battle, not only did the couple become famous in one battle, at least everyone in Chaoyang City knew them. He couldn't do that dirty thing, let alone if Lu Hu invited him back, he would most likely become a member of the Chaoyang sect. He even dared not kidnap people. Yuan and the two followed Lu Fiufeng into the Chaoyang palace. Sit, Lu Fiufeng pointed to the two futons on the short side of the left side of the hall. Thank you. After thanking each other, they both sat down. The two of them did not look around or use their senses, they just waited for Lu Fiufeng to speak. After Lu Fiufeng explained something to a disciple, he came to sit across from the two men. He took out a tea set from the storage ring and started making tea. After a while, the disciple who had gone out came back, holding a storage ring in his hands and giving it to Lu Fiufeng. Lu Fiufeng took it and gently placed it in front of Yuan and Yuan. He said, "This is a thank you gift from the Chaoyang sect to the two young friends on behalf of Chaoyang City. Please accept it." "Thank you, Senior." Yuan accepted it without changing her expression. Lu Fiufeng then took a serious look at Yuan. This girl had a face that could only be found in the sky. She was really beautiful, but her temper was also amazing. She wore the ring and was light-hearted. Haha, these two little friends are still bold-tempered people. I like them. Let me introduce them formally. I am Lu Fiufeng, the leader of the Chaoyang section. Yuan also chuckled twice and said it was a thank you gift. She took it and said that she was so quick that she didn't hesitate to give it down. "You're so polite, will they take this thing today? As long as you walk out of this door, people will remember you forever? People still like real things, forget about virtual things, she doesn't need them." Mujukan held Yuan's hand tightly and smiled, "Let Sect Master Lu laugh, this junior Mujukan, this is my Taoist companion Yuan." The two of them met Lu Fiufeng again. Lu Fiufeng waved his hand and placed the brewed tea in front of them. "This sect master likes people with your personality. Do you two have a sect and a family? Based on your qualifications, you should not be unknown. The main event is here." "Mujukan, we are casual cultivators." "Rogue cultivator," Lu Fiufeng was a little surprised, but it was a good thing for him. If they had a sect, he would go and poach people, and his face would be disgraced if he said it. "Well, we are casual cultivators." "Lu Fiufeng, have you two little friends ever considered entering a sect? For example, our Chaoyang section. With your strength, you can definitely become the elders of our Chaoyang section." Mujukan knew on the way here that this was Lu Fiufeng's true purpose. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 403. Chapter 403. Grandpa Wolf. Lu Fiufeng. Mujukan looked at Yuan, who lowered her head and said nothing. To be honest, she didn't want to join any sect or family or be restrained by anyone. She just wanted to quietly become an immortal. Lu Fiufeng had an idea when he saw the two people's attitudes. He remained silent and waited for Mujukan's reply. He could see that the female cultivator did not want to join the Chaoyang sect, but Mujukan was interested in joining. To be honest, if he had not been born in the Chaoyang sect and had cultivated in the nascent soul stage, he would not have joined any sect. Since your cultivation level is so high, you are your own sect and your own support, so there is no need to look at anyone else's face. But he really hopes they can join. These two are really geniuses in cultivation and will soon be the pillars of the Chaoyang sect. Chaoyang sect has 5 God-transforming monks, but the older ones are older, the younger ones are younger, and there is a gap in the middle. The main reason is that there are not many Jindan and Yuanying disciples with good qualifications, and there are not many who want to advance to become gods. Once the old one falls or ascends, there is a gap in the middle and there is no connection with the God transformation stage. Will the Chaoyang sect still be the largest sect without the God transformation ancestor sitting in charge? At that time, anyone with strength will step on them. Especially for the wrong clan will not have the final say in Chaoyang Mountain at that time. If they want the Chaoyang sect to go away, they can go away. Lu Fufen became more and more worried, but Mujukan were unwilling, and he couldn't force him. He could only pretend to be calm and look at the two of them with a smile. That expression looks very much like Grandpa Wolf. When Mujukan saw Yuan bowing her head and saying nothing, he knew that she was unwilling. It's just that he has his own considerations and his family to worry about. If Na Rongxiu tries another trick, he can protect this one but not that one. You can't always enter Wan's space whenever there is a situation. If the Mu family can all join the Chaoyang sect, and the Chaoyang sect is behind him, no one will dare to blatantly threaten him. Moreover, Mu's family always needs to develop and continue. It is always running around without a fixed direction. How to develop? Grandpa's lifelong wish is to revitalize the Mu family. He has not given up at such an old age and has been thinking of ways. So should he do something for the Mu family? After a long time, Mujukan said, "Thanks to Sect Master Lu, I think highly of this junior. We still have family members. Let's go back and discuss it first. I will give Sect Master Lu an answer in 3 days." Lu Fufen was stunned for a moment. He really didn't know that these two people had family members. He nodded and said, "But, the sect master is just waiting for the good news about these two little friends." Mujukan, "Then I will say goodbye first." With that said, he took Yuan in hand, bowed to Lu Fufen again and left the Chaoyang palace. As soon as they came out, a disciple outside the hall took them out of the Chaoyang sect. Chaoyang city has been restored, and the two of them got on the teleportation array and returned to Juyo city. The puppet thing has come to an end for the time being, and the cloaked man should not appear again in the short term. As soon as the two returned to Juyo city, Mujukan called everyone back. "We have to make a decision now. When the family affairs are settled, the cloaked man will definitely come again. After arranging things at home, you can practice with peace of mind and cultivate blood-eating monster insects." Mujukan told everyone what he meant. He looked at Mr. Mu, and Mr. Mu asked Mujukan, "What are Chener's plans?" Mujukan said, "Chener listens to Grandpa. If Grandpa wants to join Chaoyang sect, we will join. If Grandpa says not to join, we will not join." Mr. Mu looked at Yuan, "What do you think, little girl Waner?" Me, Yuan was still thinking about whether Yu Heiran and the others would enter the Chaoyang section. She never thought that Mr. Mu would ask her. Shouldn't she ask Mr. Mu and Mr. Mu? Mr. Mu nodded towards her. He knew that this grandson's daughter-in-law's decision represented the Yu family. If she wanted to go, her brothers would go. If she didn't go, they wouldn't go either. Since none of the brothers from the Yu family are going, what are they going to do? There is nothing wrong with being a casual cultivator. Their family has 2 nascent soul cultivators and a golden core cultivator. It is considered a medium-sized cultivating family. His wishes can still come true, and there is no need to cling to others. In fact, their family's current strength has surpassed that of the ancestor of the Mu family, and he has achieved it. And once you join a sect, you must devote yourself to the sect wholeheartedly and be loyal to the sect throughout your life or even from generation to generation. Then their Mu family is no longer the Mu family. Yuan said without thinking, "Grandpa, I will not join any section, there are too many restrictions." As soon as her words came out, Mr. Mu breathed a sigh of relief. He said to Mujukan, "Chener, my meaning is the same as that of Waner." Mujukan was not surprised that Waner didn't join the section. What was surprising was that his grandfather thought so too. Yu Heiran listened for a while and said, "We won't enter the sect either." "This is good. Bai Zi, We don't join any sects either. Everyone sitting here is a person in a high position, has experienced the Hao sect incident, and all likes to live a life of casual cultivation. You are free from restraints, you have no shortage of cultivation resources, and your cultivation level is not low, so there is no need to go to the sect and work as a cow or a horse for others. Feng Yuan and his son didn't need to ask, and they didn't know how to join any sect. As for Shitu and Wu Xingsheng, they have always followed Yuan's lead. If she doesn't go, they won't go either. Mujukan was a little dumbfounded. He was one-sided about his feelings and the other was passionate. He had thought so much on his own, but in the end no one was willing to go. He sat there for a while and then left. This matter ended so nonsensically. When Yuan came back, she saw Mujukan sitting alone in the yard in a daze. She walked over and sat down next to him, leaned against him, grabbed one of his hands and whispered softly, "Are you feeling a little sad? I didn't follow your wishes." Mujukan turned his head and looked at her, with a smile on his lips and said, "No, I just feel a little disappointed, I'm afraid I can't protect you." Yuan sighed, "Don't be a soldier. You have to believe in yourself and don't place your hopes on others. There will come a day when the Chaoyang sect cannot be relied on. In this world, the only one you can rely on is yourself." When the puppet attacked the city, the people in Chaoyang city were only thinking about how to escape, rather than thinking of ways to kill the puppet. Puppet is so difficult to deal with. If you run away, there will always be puppets in the world. Where can you escape? Not everyone has the same space to save their lives. This is what Yuan dislikes the most. When a big sect encounters a big event, the first thing a big family does is to protect its foundation in order to make a comeback. Instead of trying to nip things in the bud. 2 superpowers and 10 god transformation monks, as long as they take action, and there are also many god transformation monks in the world of immortality, if they gather together, I don't believe they can't kill those puppets. She can join any sect and establish a section. Isn't it better to be the master of her own family? It's just that she doesn't have the heart, so she just cultivates immortality and does whatever she wants. The more comfortable she is, the more she wants. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 404. Chapter 404. Yu Heiran gets married. On the third day, Mujukan sent the news to Lu Fuifeng. Lu Fuifeng was lost for a long time after receiving the news. Yuan and the others returned to a peaceful life. She increased the number of blood-eating demonic insects per person to 10,000, and then everyone went into the Jiya forest to hunt and feed the demonic beasts. She also asked Xiaoqing to take her blood-devouring demonic insects to Jiya forest. Now the number of her blood-devouring demonic insects has reached 100,000. This number is almost enough. She is afraid that she will not be able to raise more in the future. In the days that followed, Yuan practiced at home, made alchemy and drew talismans to sell in the market, and taught Liang Bao how to read. Liang Bao is almost 3 years old. He will be able to practice when he is 5 years old. He will be able to read now. Mujukan studies his lightning protection array every day besides practicing. He has strong spiritual consciousness. If he can refine a 5th level lightning protection array, everyone's spiritual pets can survive the disaster. 5 years have passed like this, and today is a happy day for Yu Mansion, the day that Yu Heiran got married. Early in the morning, Yuan came to Yu Mansion with her Dabao and Erbao. Now the 2 children have grown up. Since they started practicing 3 years ago, their cultivation has reached the 12th level of Qi training. There has been no bottleneck for these 2 children since they started practicing. Their cultivation speed is very fast, but Yuan tried his best to suppress them. In this case, otherwise the foundation has been established. Yafu and Mufu had already moved from the street in Fangxi to the east of the city. The 2 families bought 2 mountains and established the Yu family and the Mu family. The patriarch of the Yu family is naturally Yu Heiran. He broke through the nascent soul stage not long ago, and today he invited all the immortal cultivating families in the city to celebrate. The patriarch of the Mu family is of course Mr. Mu. Although he has not been promoted to Yuanying, there are two Yuanying monks in the clan, Yuan and Mu Jukan. They are considered the number one cultivating immortal family in Juyo City, and even the city lord comes to fawn over them. In the Yu clan, there were lanterns and colorful lights everywhere, and everyone was filled with joy. In front of the main hall, Fengshi and Xiaoliu greeted the female guests, and brothers Yu Hao greeted the male guests. Xiao Sier, come and greet the female guests with your sister. Ms. Feng pulled Yuan out who was busy. Okay, Yuan immediately took over Feng's job. Xiao Lu, just sit here and don't move. Yuan pulled Xiao Lu, who was still walking around with a big belly. This guy was really careless, unlike when she was pregnant with her two children. It was difficult to walk. This guy doesn't look like a pregnant woman at all, jumping around every day. Hey. Fourth sister is fine, the baby is fine. Unlike you. Xiaoliu waved his hand and pushed Yuan away, with a look of contempt in his eyes. Well, Yuan was too lazy to care about her and was busy greeting the female guests who came. Many beauties came today. Now everyone in Juyo City knows that there are several handsome and powerful unmarried men in the Yu family, and they all want to marry you. Every beauty who comes will stay with Yu Hao and the others for a look, and then shyly enter. They all wish they could be like the bride today and marry the man of their dreams. Today, Yu Heiran's bride is Li Yuling, the second daughter of the Li family, a cultivating family in the city. She is a late-stage cultivator. She is 65 years old. She has a dignified and beautiful appearance, a gentle temper, but is neat in doing things. She is very suitable for this job. The head wife of the Yu family. The guests arrived one after another before noon, and Yuan took Xiaoliu back to her yard. After the Yu family established the immortal cultivation family, Shidu and Wu Sheng both joined the Yu family, became elders, and even accepted disciples. Fourth sister, you go to the front hall and watch the fun. I'll just take a rest. Xiaoliu urged Yuan to go out as soon as she came back. Okay, I'll just let the stone come back. Farewell. Xiao Lu covered his mouth with one hand and yawned, then lay down on the bed and fell asleep. Yuan shook her head, tucked her in and left the yard to the front of the hall. The front of the main hall was filled with banquets, divided into two sides, with male guests on the left and female guests on the right. The tables were already occupied. In the main hall, two big red candles were burning brightly. Feng Shi and Feng Yuan were sitting high, and the master of ceremonies was shouting to worship the heaven and the earth. Brothers Yu Hao stood outside and looked in, all with smiles on their lips. Even Mu Jukan was standing there holding the two treasures. Yuan walked up and stood behind the three of them, father and son, and looked into the hall. Feng Shi nodded with tears in her eyes, and Feng Yuan rarely smiled. The worship ceremony was very quick, and the newlyweds were sent into the bridal chamber amidst the roar of everyone. Mother, Bao stepped back and stepped on Yuan's foot before he saw it was her. Let's go eat. Yuan took Bao's hand and called Mu Jukan. Mom, we are here with Daddy, Bao said, pointing to the banquet on the left. Oh, I forgot, you are all 8 years old. Yuan let go of the two treasures and allowed Mu Jukan to lead them away proudly. Yuan curled her lips and walked to Feng's courtyard. There are too few female relatives that she knows, so Mrsu has just built a foundation and is in retreat. Xiao Lu is sleeping, and only her mother-in-law, Feng Shi, is a female. She was not familiar with those female guests, so she might as well go to her mother. In the Fengqi courtyard of the Feng family, there were only two maids guarding the door. Where's the madam? Two maids bowed, and one maid said, Madam is still in the main hall with the guests and has not returned. Oh, yes, it's not that fast. Then I'll go in and take a rest. Yuan pushed the door open and entered. There is something to eat on the table. The wine is produced in her space, as are the spiritual fruits and vegetables, only the meat is not. Yuan went into rest for a long time, and then Mrs. Feng came back. Xiao Sier, why are you hiding from my mother? There are no women I know, so it doesn't look good for me to stand there, Mom. Have all the guests outside left? No, most of them are talking to your elder brother and others about the world of immortality. Isn't it boring for my sister-in-law to be alone? Bored? Then go and accompany her. Are you upset now that I am an old woman? How can I? My mother is as beautiful as a flower now, but she is an old woman. That's right, your mother and I are very old. Finally, when your eldest brother gets married, and your second brother and third brother, they all have to worry about me even when they are old. Feng shook her head and sighed. In the mortal world, the graves of people her age are covered with trees, and now the eldest son is getting married. She gave birth to 9 children in her life, all of whom are over 100 years old. She has 2 8-year-old grandsons. Well, just thinking about it brings me to tears. How I want to see my family full of children and grandchildren. You should worry about it slowly. They say that children are blessed with their own children. I don't know what kind of worries you have. Now, this is for you, Yuan muttered and handed Feng a jade box. What good thing? Feng took the jade box suspiciously. Why should it be packed in a jade box? Cleaning flowers, please take it tonight. Yuan put her hands on her face and said with a smile. After so many years, 3 plants have finally matured. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 405. Chapter 405 Comeback. Is it the kind of flower that washes spiritual roots? Feng was surprised that there really is such a magical flower in the world. The stems and veins on the flower really resemble the veins of the human body, which is really magical. Mrs. Su had no spiritual roots before. She said that it was Xiao Sier who gave her the spirit cleansing flower to wash out her spiritual roots. Now that such a plant is vividly placed in front of her eyes, she can't help but marvel at the wonder of this world of immortality. Thinking that something that Xiao Sier cherishes so much is given to her like an ordinary thing, while scolding this little prodigal in my heart, I feel warm in my heart. This daughter is really the lucky star of her family, and even more so, her baby. She, Feng Yuxiu, has been blessed with such a daughter through several lifetimes of cultivation. Thinking of what she has experienced over the years, Feng's eyes couldn't help but become misty. Mrs. Feng pulled Yuan into her arms and stroked her head lovingly. Yuan felt Feng's deep motherly love. She missed her so much. She also put her arms around Feng's waist, buried her head in Feng's arms, and greedily smelled the good smell of Feng's body. When Sheng said angrily, "Well, mother, your qualifications are neither good nor bad. Your cultivation speed is so slow. It should be because your spiritual roots are modeled. If you cleanse your spiritual roots, your cultivation speed will be much faster in the future." Her mother's cultivation has not improved a bit since she established the foundation, and she is still firmly in the early stage of foundation building. Uncle Bai, Yan'er, and Yi are all in the late stage of foundation building. She felt flustered just by looking at Feng's cultivation speed. The mother and daughter were affectionate for a while, and then Ms. Feng sat down. She held Yuan's hand and looked at Yuan's face. The child's face had not changed for so many years, and the traces of time had never left her. His face has always looked like he was 18 or 19 years old. This face looked more and more like hers. Feng couldn't help but caress Yuan's cheek, her eyes filled with endearment. "My son's face is so beautiful no matter how beautiful it is." "Are you praising yourself?" Yuan couldn't help laughing. Feng Shi gave her a cute look. Okay, I've been staying here for so long, and the guests outside haven't left yet. Let's go see your sister-in-law." Mrs. Feng turned her away directly. As ordered, Yuan laughed at Feng and stood up and walked towards the bride. Jia Pavilion, the courtyard is full of aura and full of spiritual plants. It is covered with red silk hanging everywhere. The red and green contrast with each other. It does not look out of place. Instead, it looks a bit more lively and fiery. Hello, Grandma. Fourth aunt at the door, two maids in festive clothes saluted Yuan. Well, open the door. The two maids opened the door to Yuan respectfully. Grandma. Fourth aunt, please. The voices of the two people rose a little higher, and they were even more joyful. They are the maids of the patriarch's wife in marriage. Who among the Li family doesn't know that the fourth sister of the head of the Yu family is a member of the Mu clan, a new cultivating family in Juyo City? For example, the Li family currently does not have a single nascent soul cultivator, and is only supported by a patriarch who is in the late golden core stage. With such a late golden core stage, the Li family still has a place in Juyo City. Don't say that the Mu family has two Yuanying ancestors. Today is their young lady's big day. It's such an honor for these fourth aunts to come to see their young lady in person. What a blessing it is to their young lady. Seeing that the fourth aunt's grandma was as beautiful as a fairy, and did not have the bad temper of the powerful monk, they were all happy for their young lady, who had married the right woman. Yuan didn't know that the two girls were already thinking 1,000 times. She entered the wedding room and saw the bride sitting alone on the bed with a red hijab on her head. Yuan shook her head. This girl was really calm. She thought that when she got married, she immediately took everything off her head as soon as she entered the new house. How could she sit obediently and wait for her husband to come back like this new sister-in-law? Sister-in-law, don't move. Brother is still with the guests. I'm just here to talk to you. Yuan saw that Li Yuling was about to get up, so she quickly went over and held her down gently. Li Yuling was very scared and excited. Even though her fourth aunt's grandma was her husband's biological sister, she was also a great cultivator of Yuanying, so she actually put aside her status to accompany her. The originally anxious heart felt strangely calmer now. How could such a big immortal cultivating family take her little Zuji seriously and think that they would leave her here and forget about her? Thank you. Fourth sister. Li Yuling originally wanted to call fourth aunt grandma, but after a pause, fourth sister still shouted out, but she didn't know if fourth aunt grandma would be angry. Yuan moved the stool next to the table and sat next to Li Yuling before saying, "You're welcome, sister-in-law. If you need anything, you can tell me." Li Yuling was very happy. She heard the tone of the fourth aunt's grandmother, who was approachable and without any airs. She hurriedly said, "The fourth sister is interested. There is nothing needed for the time being." "Well, that's okay. Brother should be back soon, and I have to go back too." Yuan looked at her and saw that this elegant sister-in-law really didn't need her here, so she stood up and left. "Fourth sister, walk slowly," Li Yuling's clear voice sounded again. "Okay." Yuan opened the curtain and went out. "Grandma Sigu, please walk slowly." The two maids sent each other off respectfully. Yuan waved her hand, threw a pill bottle and walked out the door. In the evening, Yuan, Mujukan, and his son waited for the guests to finish before returning to Mu Mansion. As soon as he returned to the courtyard, Mr. Mu sent someone to call Mujukan. Yuan led her two sons back to the house. "Mom, we heard today that many monks have disappeared inexplicably." Grandpa must have been talking about this when he called Daddy. Urbeo said, lying on Yuan's body. "Oh, Mom doesn't know yet." Yuan frowned. The cloak had disappeared for a few years, and now he couldn't wait to come out and become a demon again. "This time I come back to the world of cultivating immortals, I am afraid that I will suffer disaster. Looks like we need to be prepared this time." She said, "You two are usually not allowed to go out alone. Keep your spiritual pets and blood-eating monsters with you at all times." Speaking, he waved out 4 spirit beast bags, 2 treasures each. Liangbao carefully hung up the spirit beast bag and nodded heavily at Yuan. Dabeo said, "Mom, don't worry, we have heard about the cruelty of the puppet man and will not go out alone. We don't want to become that kind of monster." Yuan rubbed Liang Bao's head. "Well, it's good to know. That puppet is very fierce and only knows how to kill. Mom and Dad are going to go out tomorrow, so you two can go and have a look." In the past few years, the number of monsters in the Juya forest has gradually decreased. Yuan guessed that the cloaked man captured the monsters to refine the puppet. He will go to the Juya forest tomorrow to see what happens. When Liang Bao heard that he could go out with his parents, Yuan's face kept chirping with joy. The next day, a family of 4 stood at the edge of Juya forest. "Let's go," Mujukan waved his hand, and the family of 4 entered the Juya forest. After entering the Juya forest and wandering around for a long time, it turned out that there were very few monsters, let alone monks. There were none of the low-level monks, but there were a few high-level monks. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 406. Chapter 406. Arriving at Chaoyang City. High-level monks are probably here to check on the situation. Juya Forest went deep into the forest. Rong Xiu looked at the empty forest, his eyes were terrifyingly gloomy. "A few days ago, I received a report and found that puppets were appearing again, and there were fewer and fewer monsters in the Juya forest." This reminded him of the scene a few years ago when Yuan used monster beasts to induce lightning and destroyed all the puppets. The person who controlled the puppets would definitely follow suit and would definitely fight the monsters in the Juya forest. Idea. Looking at this, there is nothing I don't understand. Rong Xiu turned around and left. Suddenly, 4 figures entered his consciousness. He stopped suddenly and focused on the dreamy figure among them. She remained the same, that cold face and those loving eyes were looking at the man next to her at the moment. Rong Xiu closed his eyes and tried to control the impulse in his heart. "Mom, why haven't you seen any monsters?" Bao's childish voice sounded. "Are you going home for dinner?" Yuan teased her son. "Oh, mother, where will the monsters get their food? Mother, you lied to me again." Bao finally realized that his mother was teasing him again. Rong Xiu opened her eyes again and looked at the 2 boys who looked exactly like her. The impulse in her heart finally died out. He has been without his mother since he was a child and has never enjoyed maternal love for a day. He understands how pitiful a child without a mother is. Rong Xiu glanced at the 2 little boys a few more times and saw the pure and childlike smiles on their faces. At this moment, Rong Xiu finally felt relieved. Seeing her happy made him satisfied. Click, Rong Xiu heard a crack from the depths of his soul, and he left quickly in a flash. "Thank you," Rong Xiu thanked Yuan sincerely in his heart. Over the years, his state of mind has never been broken through. Today, when he saw their family of 4, when he gave up completely, his state of mind actually broke through. It turns out that this is where his heart knots up. Unable to love, crazy and sincere, hurting others and yourself. Let go, only by giving up can you gain. He only understood such a simple truth today. A family of 4 wandered in the forest for a few days and only saw some high-level monsters. They captured some and kept them in the space. Yuan frowned. Now he was not worried that the restrictions in Juyo City Forest would disappear and the monsters would go out to harm the world of immortality. However, the world of immortality would face another big crisis. Yuan looked at the sky. Could it be that the heaven in this world is just watching the world of immortality sink into dire straits? Whenever she goes to a continent, that continent will be troubled by disasters. Is this the state of the world of immortality itself, or is there a reason they don't know? Can't a monk properly cultivate to become an immortal? It has to be a killing spree. Once the crisis of monsters is over, there will be a crisis of puppets. Once the crisis of puppets is over, what will be the crisis? Is the crisis going to be resolved after all humans in this world die? Yuan couldn't understand, so she snorted to the sky, and the family of four moved their positions. 10 days later, the family of four returned to Juyo City. After returning, Mujukan was invited by the city lord. Yuan took the two treasures into the space. In the space, the two treasures went to feed their blood-devouring demon worms. After they entered the first level of Qi training, Yuan gave each of them a contract of 100,000 blood-devouring demon worms. They have been raising them in the space. They are now second-level demon worms. Yuan herself also went to see the blood-devouring demonic insects she raised. The original more than 2,000 were promoted to the mid-level third level and almost to the late stage. In recent years, there have not been a large number of demonic beasts for them to devour, so she had to plant a large number of elixirs for them. They devour it, and the effect is better. It's just that the blood-eating demon insect advanced too slowly, consuming a lot of elixirs, and only advanced to a small level in these years. The other 100,000 are similar to Liangbao's, they are also at the second level. Of course, Mujukan's 100,000 are also at the second level. Other people also have 100,000 each, and they raise them by themselves, and they can raise them to whatever extent they can. The main reason is that the blood-devouring monster insects are so edible. If she were to raise them all, even 10 spaces would not be enough to eat them. Yuan took the two babies out of the space after they were fed. Mujukan also came back, but with a dark face. "What's wrong?" Yuan asked. "Chaoyang City is trapped again." "What? Trapped again? Chaoyang City is a piece of cake, why? Who knows?" This time, the cloaked man first used monsters to attract thunder and destroyed the city defense formation, and then led the puppets to attack the city. This time, the Chaoyang sect and the Rong clan's god transformation monks were dispatched. Both sides the stalemate has been going on for several days, and both sides have suffered heavy losses. The monks are sending people from various cities to the Chaoyang sect every day, and there are countless casualties every day. This battle is going to be a protracted one. I'll go and gather people. Get ready, and we'll leave soon. Mujukan left after saying this. Yuan was stunned for a moment, then went to prepare. After lighting a stick of incense, Mujukan took the Mu family's people, and Yu Heiran took the Yu family's people, a total of 20 people from the two families, and rushed towards the city lord's palace in a mighty manner. In the city lord's mansion, the city lord has already been waiting for the teleportation formation. It was the first time Yuan saw the city lord. He was dressed in purple and black city lord uniforms. He had an ordinary middle-aged face, a mustache, and was in the early stage of nascent soul. As soon as they saw Yuan and others coming, they rushed up to greet them. "Elder Mu, we have to ask you to lead the team this time. We have 100 people from Juyo City, and there are exactly 80 people there. The matter is urgent." Elder Mu can set off. The city lord waved his hand, and all the people who were originally scattered were gathered. There were exactly 80 people gathered together. Mujukan glanced at the crowd. Except for the 3 nascent soul stage members in their team, the others were all golden core cultivators. He raised his hands towards the city lord and said, "Okay, I'll leave immediately." After saying a few words, then he said to the 80 people, "Since I am leading the team, you must obey my orders in everything. You are not allowed to act privately or escape. Anyone who violates this rule will be killed without mercy." After hearing this, the city lord's eyes did not change. He still looked at them with squinted eyes, wondering what he was thinking. When the 80 people heard this, some of their faces changed. Indeed, some of them just wanted to escape. As long as they arrived in Chaoyang City and there were so many people and chaos, who would notice who was missing? Wouldn't this cut off some people's livelihood? But Elder Mu is the Yuanying Dao Lord, who dares to stroke his tiger beard. Yes, everyone had to respond honestly. Mujukan turned around and said to the City Lord, then our Mu family will have to trouble the City Lord to take care of us. City Lord, Elder Mu, don't worry, it is the City Lord's duty to protect Juyo City. Okay, let's go. Mujukan waved his hand and led the people up to the teleportation array. There were many monks from major cities going to Chaoyang City. It took Yuan and his party 2 days to get to Chaoyang City. As soon as they left Chaoyang City, there were shouts of killing, and the sounds of magic weapons and spells could be heard all the time. Mujukan quickly led people out of the City Lord's mansion. Outside the City Lord's mansion, the City Lord stood anxiously at the door and watched the supporting monks coming out of the teleportation array. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 407. Chapter 407, Feared. When I saw a group of people coming out, I immediately asked someone to take them away. Mujukan's team was taken directly to the city wall. Yuan looked outside and her heart skipped a beat. There were densely packed puppets outside the city, including humans and monsters. There were at least millions of them. Fortunately, the puppet cannot fly. If it could fly, it would have flown up the city wall. Now the 10 major cultivators of the transformation of God have defended the entire Chaoyang city tightly, and other monks have jumped into the puppet group to fight with the puppets. No wonder no monsters were used to induce a catastrophe. If such a situation caused a catastrophe, all the monks in the puppet group would die. Waner, let's get off. Mujukan waved to the more than 90 monks behind him and called out to Yuan, who jumped off first. Xiao Sier, be careful. Yu Heiran also sent a message to her, and immediately jumped down to the city. Yuan nodded and jumped into the group of puppets. At the same time, he summoned blood-eating monster insects and threw them on the violent puppets. There are too many puppets. Every time I jump, I am in a group of puppets. As soon as I get out, the puppets will surround me and chop them. The third-level blood-devouring demonic insect is very powerful and can devour puppets very quickly. It didn't take long for Yuan to clear a clearing for him. Then she quickly threw out the 100,000 blood-devouring demonic insects of the second level. Not only did she throw out the blood-devouring demonic insects, Mujukan and Yu Heiran also threw out the blood-devouring demonic insects. Within 10 breaths, their puppets were reduced. The monks who were defending themselves on the city wall above them saw such a scene. After being surprised, they thought that if there were more blood-eating demonic insects, the puppets here would not be enough to devour them. But once again, it is difficult to control vicious insects like blood-devouring monsters when they are in large numbers. When they cannot be controlled, these blood-devouring monsters are many times more ferocious than puppets, and exterminating the entire continent is not a problem. Well, when this crisis is resolved, we still have to talk to those monks to avoid causing another catastrophe. Looking at the monks who drove the blood-eating demonic insects, all of them had high levels of cultivation, and 3 of them were actually at the nascent soul stage. He was shocked. If these 3 people used the blood-devouring monster insects to do something, the consequences would be disastrous. The monk transforming into gods thought a lot at once, and his eyes changed again and again. He glanced at the puppets outside the city. These monks were still unable to move. It was better to wait until the battle was over. Yuan didn't know that the blood-eating demonic insects they brought out had attracted the attention of the great cultivator of the transformation god, and she was even afraid of them. She waved her magical flying sword and moved around like a ghost in the crowd of puppets. The flying sword passed by, and it was the puppets. Stumps and broken arms fell off. Yuan is best at this kind of close-quarters attack. Coupled with her footwork, she is like a fish in water among the puppets. There are even puppets that have lost limbs. As long as they are convenient for Yuan to take in, she will put them into the space and let Liang Bao's blood-eating monsters devour them. The 200,000 were not contracted by her and she could not move them. While Yuan was killing the puppets, he noticed that the people on the Mu family's side were all members of his own family. Except for her, Mu Jukan and Mr. Mu, who are at the higher level of cultivation, others like Mr. Mu are in the late stage of foundation building. Fortunately, their blood-eating demonic insects are all at the second level, and the puppets can't enter their bodies yet. They all formed a circle back to back just like they did in Xianling continent, just dealing with the puppets. Mu Jukan not only has to pay attention to the safety of his own family, but also the people he brings with him. Those people are not stupid. No one fights alone. They all form a small team like the Mu family. There are no casualties so far. In addition, Mu Jukan told them how to deal with puppets on the way. The people brought by Yu Heiran were stronger, and they were assisted by blood-eating monster insects. They destroyed many puppets in a short time. There was a tall cloaked man in the distance, with more than 20 cloaked men standing beside him. They all watched the scenes on the battlefield intently. "Sect Master, those two people are here again," a cloaked man said to the tall cloaked man. "I see it," the cold voice of the cloaked man sounded. The voice was low and it was difficult to distinguish between male and female. If you ignored the cold breath, the voice was not unpleasant to hear. "Pay attention to them. If they release monsters to cause thunder and disaster, you can take the opportunity to rush into the city and throw the monsters to Chaoyang Mountain," the tall cloaked man said again. "I obey," the cloaked man below immediately replied. They don't know why the sect leader insists on destroying Chaoyang Mountain. They just follow the order. Normally, the 20 or so people here could not handle the 10 god-transforming monks, but they felt that the sect master seemed unwilling to face the Shangrong tribe head-on, and seemed to be avoiding something. The tall cloaked man's consciousness glanced at the place where the Rong clan was from time to time, feeling a little reluctant but more resentful. Thinking about all the past, he felt relieved again and ruined the good. He looked at Yuan and the others with his consciousness, and saw that the puppets had lost a lot. At this rate, the puppet army still will not be able to attack the city, and it is estimated that the success will fall short again. What can we do about it? He glanced at the 20-odd cloaked men in front of him, and then at the 10 god transformation monks on the city wall. He knew that they were waiting for the high-level monks on his side to take action. He gritted his teeth and said, "Let's go to war." "Yes, Sect Master," more than 20 people replied in unison, and then they all flew towards the 10 god transformation monks. The god transformation monks guarding the city wall saw that the person they were waiting for finally appeared. One of the god transformation monks waved his hand, and the 10 of them immediately got ready to fight. This is when the war is about to break out. Fight! When more than 20 cloaked men flew over, the tall cloaked man shouted, "Fight!" 10 god transforming monks also shouted in unison. As soon as the high-spirited voice came out, the monks below were shaken up, and they all used their special skills to fight against the puppets. When the puppet heard the sound of fighting, he seemed to be inspired and started killing people even more ferociously. Not long after, many monks were killed. Yuan glanced at the monks in the transformation stage who were fighting in darkness in the sky, and then at the puppet who looked like he was going crazy. How long can the monks last in such an endless battle? There are more monks dead than puppets killed, and the puppets do not need to replenish their spiritual power and are always full of health. How can we win this battle? Her consciousness flashed, and Xiaoqing came out. "Xiaoqing, kill the puppet." When Xiaoqing saw that there were so many puppets out there, she immediately raised her fist and hit the puppet. Yuan took advantage of her footwork and rushed towards the outside of the puppet group. She quickly moved the little snake and 2 treasures out of the place where no one noticed. There is no other way but to use this dangerous trick. Mother, Liang Bao was shocked at first when he saw the dark group of puppets, and then he became excited. Little snake, hurry up, let's fly to the middle, Dabeo directed the little snake. The little snake rolled his triangular eyes and said, "Little master, just stay inconspicuous on the periphery and let the blood-eating demonic insects come out quickly." The master finally came to the outside to let them out, but the young master still had to get in the middle. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 408. Chapter 408. The Puppet Retreats. Isn't this giving secrets to others? These two silly babies made the little snake feel a little stuffed. The master contracted it when he was 9 years old. At that time, the master was not so stupid. Oh, the little snake was heartbroken again. It forgot that the master's soul was an adult soul at that time. It is stupid. However, it stopped on the group of puppets and waited for the two fools to figure it out. By the way, it could sweep away many puppets with a few swipes of its tail. Liang Bao understood it as soon as his mind turned. They both nodded and immediately swung out the blood-eating monster insect. As soon as the blood-eating demonic insects came out, they pounced on the puppets like hungry ghosts. Little snake, protect the big treasure and the second treasure. When Yuan saw it, she realized that the two treasures had been hungry for a long time. She immediately sent a message to the little snake. "Master, don't worry, if it's inconvenient for us after the battle, we can go into the mountains," the little snake replied. Now that its strength has been restored, it will have no problem even facing a god transformation monk. It is more than enough to protect the two young masters. Yuan nodded and did not go back to the puppet group. She was not far from Xiaoxi and the others. The puppets on the outside are weaker. The mother and son can take down hundreds of puppets with one stick of incense. This was Liang Bao's first time on the battlefield, but he didn't have any stage fright. He threw up the talisman in his hand and moved very quickly. Yuan has been paying attention to the two treasures and saw that they were fine and enjoyed fighting. She breathed a sigh of relief. Originally, she wanted the two treasures to experience a real battle. They would one day face killings in the future. This time, she simply wanted him to control the blood-devouring monster insect. She was a little surprised by Liang Bao's performance. She didn't expect that they were not afraid of killing at all. Having two treasures and 200,000 blood-eating demonic insects is equivalent to thousands more monks, which is more effective than thousands of monks. The monks may be killed, but they may not be able to kill the puppets, but the blood-devouring monsters are different. The puppets cannot kill them, and they devour them very quickly. As long as they are stuck to them, no one can escape. The mother, son, and the little snake were killing everyone here, and the flying sword in Mujukan's hand never stopped. When his consciousness swept towards Yuan's original place, Xiaoqing was the only one there. He was startled, and his consciousness quickly spread across the entire battlefield. When he saw the two guys who kept throwing talismans into the group of puppets, the corners of his mouth raised, and he concentrated on killing the puppets again. Bang! At this moment, a cloaked man fell from the air. Mujukan narrowed his eyes, quickly pulled out a sword flower, swept down the puppets around him, and flashed in front of the cloaked man at a strange speed. 10 soul thorns were sent out, but the man in the cloak didn't respond and just became cold. With a flash of consciousness, Mujukan put the corpse into the storage ring without letting it be eaten by the blood-eating demonic insects. Once the battle was over, he would see who these cloaked men were. This scene happened to fall in Rongxiu's eyes. The cloaked man was the one he injured and fell down. He was about to fly down and strike again when he saw Mujukan standing in front of the cloaked man for a moment before taking him away. Rongxiu was sure that the cloaked man was definitely not dead when he fell. How could someone who was not dead be able to collect the storage ring? Unless he has life space, how could this legendary artifact appear in two people? There is no life space, so it was only taken away by Mujukan after he killed the cloak. How can he kill a master in one breath? He could see clearly that Mujukin clearly didn't make a move. Unless spiritual attack. Rongxiu thought of this and glanced at Mujukin with complicated eyes. People really can't be judged by their appearance. After the battle lasted for a day, the tall cloaked man saw that the people on his side had suffered heavy losses. 5 of the cloaked men were killed by the god-transforming monks. The puppet below has been half destroyed. The tall cloaked man was restless and unwilling. He suddenly got rid of his opponent, flew behind Rongxiu, and stabbed Rongxiu without hesitation. Rongxiu saw the tall cloaked man attacking him in his consciousness. He dodged and narrowly escaped. Rongxiu turned around fiercely and looked at the tall cloaked man. The tall cloaked man saw that his sneak attack failed, and when he saw Rongxiu's unparalleled face, he suddenly lost his mind. There was a flash of sadness in his eyes, but he was wearing a cloak that blocked his consciousness, so others couldn't see it. He was really afraid of seeing this face, and he also wanted to see this face. After only struggling for a moment, the tall cloaked man disappeared in a flash. With the piercing sound of bone flutes, the cloaked man and the army of puppets both retreated. They were moving very fast, but the little snake, mother and son, still caught up with them. After chasing for a long time, the cloaked men and puppets disappeared into a swamp. "Master, let's go back," the little snake said after hesitating outside the swamp for a while. Yuan nodded. It would be better not to enter this swamp. She took the little snake and the 2 treasures away and returned to Chaoyang City. "Huh, is it you?" On her way back, Yuan met Rongxiu who was chasing her. Rongxiu nodded. "Stop chasing them, they have entered a swamp." Yuan dropped these words and quickly went back. After Rongxiu glanced at Yuan, he chased him outside the swamp and took a look, where he stood. He kept thinking about the tall cloaked man. The tall cloaked man was very abnormal. It gave him the feeling that the tall cloaked man seemed to know him. He wanted to kill him but didn't want to kill him. In his memory, he didn't have any enemies, let alone the remnants of the Tianyin sect. Rongxiu was puzzled. He stood for a long time, shook his head and returned. What he didn't know was that when the tall cloaked man saw him standing on the edge of the swamp, tears were already streaming down his face. If Rongnantian hadn't snatched Fu'er from him back then, this child should be his. Now he has a face that is 70% similar to Fu'er's, but he is not his son. He must take revenge and destroy the Rong clan. Thinking about the suffering he has endured over the years, I hate Rongnantian so much that I wish I could pull out his skin, break his bones, and refine his soul. Yuan returned to the outside of Chaoyang City. The surviving monks were cleaning the battlefield. Mujukin was also there. He was replacing the corpse of the puppet in the hands of the monks. When Mujukin saw her coming back, he hurriedly flew up. "Are there any casualties among our monks in Juyo City?" Yuan asked. "There are many injured over there, and 10 people died," Mujukin said, leading her to the base of the city wall. There were dozens of monks sitting on the ground meditating. "Brother, what is this?" Yuan saw Yuhairan taking care of a comatose middle-aged man. "Yuhairan, your sister-in-law's biological father." Yuan glanced with her consciousness and her breath was not stable. "Oh, is the elixir enough?" Yuhairan nodded. "That's enough. I just took one and will be fine when I wake up." "Okay, as long as everything is fine, I'll go see Grandpa and the others." Yuan put a few bottles of elixirs in Yuhairan's hands and came to see Mr. Mu. Their injuries were not serious, and they would be fine after adjusting their breathing. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 409. Chapter 409 Secrets of the Year. Yuan sat next to Yu Hao and meditated to recover. Even though the puppet has retreated, who knows when the cloaked man will go crazy and attack again. Mujukan arranged for the monks from Juyo City to sit down next to Yuan and meditate to recover. After half a day, everyone was healed. Mujukan arranged for someone to take Yuan to the mountains and forests outside the city. Yuan knew what he was going to do, so he found a place to hide his body, and then set up a concealment array before the two of them entered the space. As soon as he entered the space, Mujukan quickly ran to see his son. "Daddy," Urbeo shouted excitedly, wrapping his arms around Mujukan's neck. It was obvious that Urbeo was still in the mood of the previous battle. "Well, are you hurt? Are you scared?" Mujukan held one in each hand and asked gently, with a trace of nervousness in his eager voice. Liangbao shook his head. "Dad, there is a mother and a little snake." Mujukan looked at Yuan, who was standing quietly behind him, walked to her with the two treasures in his arms, stared at her with distressed eyes and said, "Let's go, I'll cook something delicious for you today." Yuan nodded, took Mujukan's arm and walked towards the bedroom. Sure enough, Mujukan prepared a large table of food, and the two treasures were full and went to refining. Mujukan finished cleaning up the leftovers on the table, carried Yuan into the bedroom, put her down gently, then got on the bed and sat down next to her, hugging her. "Meet Rongxiu." Yuan raised her eyes to meet his deep black eyes. This guy held back his question for so long, and nodded. "Well, I met him on the road, and I told him something, saying that the puppet entered the swamp." Mujukan's gentle face did not change. He just hugged Yuan tighter and rested his head on her hair, "As long as he didn't hurt you. You are thinking too much. At this time, he will not do anything that will damage morale. We are here to help Chaoyang City. And I can't feel that kind of emotion in him anymore." Although Yuan felt strange, it was a good thing. She asked because she was crazy. She wanted to avoid any trouble as much as possible. Mujukan felt much better after hearing this, and turned over and pressed forward. The two of them finally left the space after struggling enough. There were still things going on outside. Mujukan took Yuan's hand and returned to the base of the city wall. Everyone was meditating and chatting. There were monks who knew how to make alchemy and draw talismans. They were making alchemy and drawing talismans aside. "Why don't you enter the city?" Yuan glanced at the monks at the base of the city wall. Except for the monks from Juyo City, the base of the city wall was full of monks. "There are too many monks in the city and there is no place to place them. Monks from other cities are still coming," Mujukan explained to her. "Moreover, they monks all have experience in fighting puppets. When puppets come, they can fight at any time." Oh, Yuan understood. The two of them returned to the monks in Juyo City and took out their futons to meditate. Chaoyang Mountain, Rong Clan, where Rongxiu stood on the mountain and looked at the swamp. His mind has been thinking about the scene after the tall cloaked man sneaked up on him. The tall cloaked man wanted to kill him but didn't want to kill him. At that time, he felt the sad aura on his body. Rongxiu was thinking so hard that he couldn't think of a reason. He stared deeply at the swamp, turned around, and flew to Rong Nantian's study. "Xiu, what's the matter?" Rong Nantian raised his head and looked at Rongxiu with an indifferent expression. Rongxiu nodded, frowning slightly and said, "Dad, do we have any enemies?" Rong Nantian looked at his son in surprise. Why did his son ask this question? How could a monk never kill someone to settle a grudge in his life? He thought for a moment and said, "We have been a clan for 10,000 years and there are no enemies anywhere, but we don't have many immortal enemies." Rong Nantian paused when he said this. What did Xiu discover? Rongxiu did not hide anything and told the tall cloaked man what he had done. Rong Nantian's heart skipped a beat. His consciousness scanned Rongxiu's body and he felt relieved after making sure that there was nothing wrong with him. But another thought came to his mind: the people of Tianyan sect were ruthless, but they wanted to kill Xiu but didn't want to, and thinking of this, Rong Nantian's heart skipped a beat, and a figure came to mind, Fu Er's husband. That tall, stunning man. He remembered clearly that he never saw the man coming up after he knocked him off Wu Yuan Cliff. The boundless cliff is covered in fog all year round. No matter what level of cultivation a person who falls has, the chance of survival is zero. After the man fell, he had people guarding him, and it took 100 years for the people to be withdrawn. He remembered that when the man fell, he said, if he didn't die, he would kill him to avenge his wife. Rong Nantian's heart skipped a beat. No wonder the puppet only attacked Chaoyang City. Is it really him? Rong Xiu saw his eyes flickering and knew that he must know who it was. He didn't ask, just sat quietly and waited. After a long time, Rong Nantian came back to his senses and looked at Rong Xiu with complicated eyes. For so many years, he has never thought about Rong Xiu's identity, but everyone knows that a monk's pregnancy is different from a mortal's pregnancy, and it is not surprising that he has been pregnant for 10 or 8 years. Back then, when he snatched Yunfu back and had her married, he didn't use his spiritual consciousness to check her belly. And after giving birth to a son, Yunfu died. Although the monk also had dystocia, the chance of her death was small, but she still died. At that time, he also thought about why she died. I thought she didn't want to live anymore and was determined to die. After all, the child he gave birth to was his son Rong Nantian. Now that I think about it, I'm afraid that's not the case. If it was really his son and Yunfu hated him so much, she could have taken her son and died, so why would she give birth to his son? Rong Xiu looks like Yunfu for 7 points, and the other 3 points are also blurry. He doesn't know who he looks like, but today he took a closer look and found that the tall figure and the 3 points of appearance were exactly what he looked like. Rong Nantian suddenly felt mixed emotions. It turned out that Yunfu had been trying to make ends meet in the past few years, just because she wanted to give birth to a child. Rong Nantian's heart suddenly jumped to the bottom. He had been such a son all his life. Although his son was not very close to him, he really regarded him as a treasure. Rong Xiu clearly felt the fluctuating aura on Rong Nantian's body. He asked, "Did Dad think of something?" Rong Nantian closed his eyes and shook his head, signaling Rong Xiu to go out. Rong Xiu clearly knew that Rong Nantian had something to say to him, so he didn't ask and just left the study. In a cave in the swamp, a tall cloaked man has been looking at the image of Rong Xiu on the jade slip. Looking at him, his eyes were filled with joy. He put the jade slip away, and with a flash of consciousness, he left the swamp and flew towards Chaoyang sect. Before he arrived at Chaoyang City, he saw the densely packed monks at the base of the Chaoyang City wall. He stopped and immediately retreated. After lighting a stick of incense, Wu Yanjiang's puppet ran towards Chaoyang City again. "Waner, the puppet is coming." Mujukan stood up and looked at the puppet 100 miles away. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 410. Chapter 410 Xiaozi. This time the puppets are not the ones leading the charge, but the cloaked man in front of a group of puppets. Yuan also looked over with her consciousness, and when she saw the menacing puppets and the cloaked man in the row in front, her beautiful eyes froze. The cloaked man came to the front of the curtain, and he was about to have a big fight. The monks at the base of the city wall stood up with a roar, all on alert, ready to fight at any time. The tall cloaked man led the puppets to a stop 20 feet away from Chaoyang City. The monks saw them stop and did not attack them. They did not attack the puppet. They were all wary of the puppet. They didn't know what the cloaked man wanted to do this time. "Please come out and see Rong Nantian, the leader of the Rong clan." Suddenly, a cloaked man next to the tall cloaked man shouted. The voice was filled with spiritual power and could be heard by everyone in Chaoyang Mountain in Chaoyang City. All the monks looked at each other, Are they going to fight each other? Rong Nantian, who was standing in the study, immediately flew out when he heard this. Rong Xiu, who had gone back in a daze, flew out immediately when he heard the shouting. Lu Fufeng immediately flew out and stood in the air, watching. Why did the cloaked man call Rong Nantian an old man? The father and son came to the cloaked people one after another. Rong Xiu felt a pair of burning eyes lingering on him. He raised his eyes, and that look disappeared. "Excuse me, is it me you are looking for?" Rong Nantian asked, staring at the tall cloaked man Xiao Zi. Xiao Zi nodded. "Today we two will fight to the death, or else the sect leader will crush your Rong clan." A familiar voice came into Rong Nantian's ears. It was indeed him. Rong Nantian looked at his son beside him. He threw a storage ring to Rong Xiu and said calmly, "Wait for Dad to come back. If Dad doesn't come back, you should protect the Rong clan. Today he and Xiao Zi will either die or forget about each other. He cannot selfishly destroy the Rong clan. If he died today, he believed that Rong Xiu would protect the Rong clan, and Xiao Zi would not harm Rong Xiu." "Dad," Rong Xiu looked at Rong Nantian puzzled. Rong Nantian patted his son on the shoulder. "This is a matter between Dad and him. It must be settled today." Rong Xiu put the ring back into Rong Nantian's hand and said, "Dad, give this man to your son." "No," Rong Nantian decisively put the ring back into Rong Xiu's hand. His son's move made him feel hot. His son was still worried about him, but how could he let their real father and son face each other? Rong Xiu frowned. His father was the leader of the Rong clan. How could he hand over his life so easily? He immediately sent out several messages and stopped Rong Nantian. "Dad, my son can't let you go alone." "Well." Rong Nantian sighed deeply in his heart. This was the evil thing he had done back then, so naturally he had to put an end to it himself. But how could he tell his son about this? Before the people Rong Xiu called came, he floated strangely and rushed to Xiao Zi. With a wave of his hand, the two of them flew away quickly. Everyone was confused by this incident, especially Rong Xiu. He was stunned for a moment and hurriedly chased after him. Yuan and Mujukan looked at each other, shook their heads and stared at the army of puppets opposite. Quietly, Yuan released the more than 2,000 third-level blood-devouring demonic insects and ordered them to cover up from behind the puppet army. No matter what the situation is today, she cannot let go of any of these puppets. Rong Nantian and Xiao Zi flew all the way to Weiyuan Cliff before landing. As soon as they landed, Rong Xiu also landed next to Rong Nantian, guarding Xiao Zi. "You are familiar with this place, right?" Xiao Zi completely ignored Rong Xiu's defense. He pointed at Rong Nantian and said bitterly. Rong Xiu turned his head and looked at Rong Nantian, who nodded calmly. "Very good, come here, kid." Xiao Zi waved to Rong Xiu, and the anger just now disappeared, and he turned to Rong Xiu in a gentle voice. Seeing Rong Nantian looking like he was mourning, he most likely knew it. Rong Xiu frowned. "Who are you?" This problem has troubled him for several days. When he saw the cloaked man, he could not feel any murderous intention in his heart. Xiao Zi threw a jade slip to Rong Xiu. "Let's take a look." Rong Xiu glanced at Rong Nantian again. Rong Nantian's eyelids drooped and he did not dare to meet Rong Xiu's eyes. Rong Xiu looked at it with his spiritual sense suspiciously. There were only images of two people inside. The man was tall and tall, with a graceful appearance. Did Tsukuda look like him? The woman's appearance was astonishing, and she looked exactly like him. That woman is her mother. Although she has never met her, there are many portraits of her in Rong Nantian's study. The answer is ready to come out for the man whose appearance is 3/3 similar to his. No wonder he and Rong Nantian don't look alike at all. It's not that he hasn't doubted it, and it's not that he doesn't want to use the bloodline method to identify whether they are father and son. But Rong Nantian was so kind to him, how could he bear to do such a hurtful thing? But now, Rong Xiu's mind was buzzing. He looked at Rong Nantian, who had his head lowered, and then looked at the cloaked man. The figure of the man in the cloak is about the same height as the man in the image, and everything else is hidden in the cloak and cannot be seen. Rong Xiu took a deep breath and stared at Xiao Zi with his eyes, as if he wanted to penetrate him. His voice was slightly trembling, "Are you him?" This person of course refers to the image in the jade slip. Xiao Zi nodded, "Come here, that man robbed your mother and killed your mother. Do you want to recognize the thief as your father?" There was anger, depression, and pain in his voice. Rong Xiu stood there at a loss. This father who had called him a treasure for more than 300 years was actually the murderer of his mother. He knew this a long time ago, otherwise he would not have been indifferent to him for so many years. But today I found out that he is not his son. It would be okay to say that it only caused the death of his mother, but he was not his son yet, and he had considered the thief as his father for so long. What is he going to do? Over the years, Rong Nantian has only been better to him. He has things that others in the tribe have, and he has things that others in the tribe don't have. Without Rong Nantian's preference, he would not have achieved what he has achieved today. He glanced at Rong Nantian, who seemed to have aged dozens of years, and Xiao Zi, who was waiting for him to pass. He shook his head and disappeared in a flash. Rong Nantian stared blankly at Rong Xiu's retreating figure. He knew that Rong Xiu couldn't accept the fact that he had also lost his son. Rong Nantian sat on the ground dejectedly, as if his energy had been drained, and wilted like an eggplant beaten by frost. Xiao Zi saw Rong Xiu running away, and then looked at Rong Nantian who was slumped on the ground as if there was no life left. There was a violent aura on his body, and he ducked behind Rong Nantian, raised his foot and kicked Rong Nantian off the cliff. Let him go down and taste the sour taste. If it weren't for him, his wife would not die, and his son would not have known the thief as his father for so many years, and he only knew that he still had a son in this world. Now his son denies him and runs away. Everything is caused by this man. End of this chapter.